I thought, how in the world can anyone say they know God, they love God, they honor God, and in any way agree with or support, passively or actively, the premeditated taking of human life in the womb? It's absolutely beyond me. I keep coming back to all these questions, and I think we need to, because we're trying to be, people are trying to deceive us into thinking that it's just a wart. It's just a, optional surgery that you can take. But these questions that keep coming back to me, and I hope they come back to you too, and that is, who speaks for these children? Who protects them? I came to a conclusion this week, and it may sound harsh, but I believe the statement is true. And I hope before anyone would challenge me on it, they would really, really think it through, because I have really thought this statement through. And that is this, that those who would be pro-abortion, those who would be pro-choice, have got to be the most selfish philosophies that I can even begin to imagine. And you say, why such an extreme? Because to me, they are prohibiting to others what they themselves have experienced. And that's life. Life. And so I thought, how do we approach this as Christians? How do I approach this as a pastor? How do we deal with this, this topic today? And there's something that I stumbled on and have begun to really research, and it's frightening. Frightening. I know that I've shared with most of you, I read the Chronicle of the Kings. It's a 5-part series by Lynn Austin, which is awesome because it's a historical fiction book, and it covers the time of the kings. And King Ahaz, what a terrible, awful king. And that he gave in to the philosophies and the religions around him. And he practiced Molech worship, the detestable god Molech. He's detestable in history. He's detestable in the scriptures. And a king of Israel practiced child sacrifice. And so the absolute horror and the tragic parallel between this ancient practice of human child sacrifice to the god Molech. Now, the way that this happened, and with modern day abortion, the parallels between the two. They had this bronze statue of this ugly looking, by the way, I think I got a picture of it up here. And you'll need to go back here in a second, Jim, if you can do that. But here's a picture of it, of this god. It's a head of like a bull, and it had horns on it, and it had these arms that were stretched out. And down in the abdomen area, they had this roaring fire, and the crowd would be worked up into a frenzy with loud instruments and screaming and dancing. And the person bringing the offering would bring the little baby and place it in the hands of the god Molech, and it would roll down into the fire. And they would make all this racket in this religious fervor to drown out the noise of the screams of the child. And so in Carthage, this was huge. This huge city in northern Africa, and then also over in Palestine, this practice was going on. And there were several reasons. And what I want to do is just kind of look at that and show how humans are not very different than what they were back then. And we look at that and we cringe, and we should. All humanity should cringe when you see this take place. Kings, great wealthy people performed this, as well as people of lower status would perform these rituals to the god Molech. And there were some reasons, and here's going to be the scary part. The reasons aren't any different than what they were back then. Not any different. One of the reasons that you would offer your own live human being, child, to the god Molech is to avert a potential danger in a time of crisis. For example, going back to King Ahaz, why in the world would he take his firstborn son, his future king, and offer him, kill him in this fire like this? Well, to avert some danger. He was extremely afraid of Assyria. And if you lived in Palestine in his time, you should be afraid of Assyria. You cannot even begin to imagine how wicked and evil and torturous these people were, and they were taking over every single nation and city around them. And they, without getting too graphic, I'll tell you one of the practices they had. They would like to keep you alive, and they would put you at a stake, and they would skin you alive. Not enough to kill you, mind you, but just to torture you. And day after day, you could linger 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days, and this is the kind of thing they did. So King Ahaz was extremely frightened that they would come. And so he was appealing to one of the local gods, Molech, to release him and to rescue him from this danger of the Assyrians, to avert this danger. Think about how many people do that today, to avert some kind of danger. That's why they have the abortion. It may be their reputations. It may be an education. It may be a danger to their career. It may be a danger to some lifestyle choice that they have. Uncannily alike. Another reason would be to gain success, to the god to provide, of all things, ironically, fertility so that they could have more babies, so that their crops would do well, so that any vow that they made would be fulfilled because I'm serious about my offering. And you think about how many abortions are performed every single day so that people don't have to give up their lifestyle, their college, their plans for life, whatever it is that they want to do, which is basically all about them. In the time of Molech, as is today, you have people practicing irresponsible sexuality. And as a result of that, you have a baby. People say, Tom, why aren't you pro-choice? I'll tell you, I am pro-choice in this regard. You have a choice whether or not to have sex. Once you've made that choice and you've created a baby, now you've got a third party that now has a choice too. You made your choice is done, now your choice is gone as regards that human being is created. But there are people back then, they had shrine prostitutes and illicit sexual behavior that resulted in pregnancy, and they knew how to take care of it. Some ways more hideous than others. And how is that not the absolute heart and soul of what's going on today with modern day abortion being practiced as birth control? Oh, don't let any people come up to you and say, but Tom, what about? You know what's coming, what about? They're going to bring in the emotional. Rape, incest, life of the mother, and all those things. Let's just take a moment and let's set that aside. Less than 1% of all abortions fall into that category. Just set that aside. We can have that as a discussion another time, but just set that aside. Out of 4,000 people, less than 1% every day. But the number one is irresponsible sexual behavior, and now we have an answer for it. Kill the baby. Here's one that maybe you've not heard before, and that is population control. In China, it's full bloom. They make no bones about it because it's so accepted. You got too many people. We need to stop. Here's an area that has really been tragic. Its tragedy is only exceeded by the fact that the people are being fooled. Planned Parenthood, one of the greatest providers of abortion to low-income families and to minorities.